Alright, so today I'm going to show you guys how to make this classic apple pie. Alright, so let's get started. So here I have 5 apples. I'm guesstimating. I think that this is how much I'm going to need for one pie. And here I have some nutmeg and some cinnamon. And you're going to need 1 lemon, juice and zest for this recipe. Alright, so at this point my apples have been peeled and I have them here in some lime water to prevent them from getting brown. So what you want to do at this point is just go ahead and slice your apples up into thick enough slices to withstand cooking so that they don't get soft and mushy. Now we're going to move on to the cooking mixture for our apples. This is just a 1/4 cup of water that I'm adding to the saucepan. And to that we're going to add about 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. If you don't have cornstarch, you can use flour. The difference is barely noticeable, trust me. And once you have your 3 tablespoons of cornstarch added, all you have to do is just whisk it in. Just mix it all the way in, make sure all your cornstarch is dissolved and incorporated into your water. So that's all whisked up. You're going to want to add about a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. After that, you're going to want to go ahead and add about a teaspoon of cinnamon. And once you've done that, all that's left to do now is to whisk your nutmeg and your cinnamon into your cornstarch mixture. Here I have my 5 apples all sliced up. Over to the side here I have 3/4 cup of warm water and our cornstarch, nutmeg and cinnamon mixture. So of course at this point you're going to add in your warm water and you're going to take your apples and you're going to put them into that mixture as well. And of course once you've done that, you're just going to go ahead and give your mixture a great big stir just to make sure that everything is incorporated. It's time to sweeten things up a bit, so this is just about a 1/2 cup of brown sugar that I am adding to my apples, and once you've done that, just go ahead and give it another stir. Now this part is totally optional. You can add a few big pieces of lemon zest to your apple mixture like I did with mine. It made the pie taste so good and zesty and just you must do it. You must. And after you've done that, go ahead and add about 2 tablespoons of lemon. It would be best if you deseed this first because you definitely do not want seeds in your apple mixture. So make sure that you deseed this before you add your lemon juice. So once your apples are on the stove, boiling and cooking away, you're going to start your pie crust, which is the most difficult part of the pie recipe. And it's the part that everyone is afraid of because a buttery, flaky pie crust is something that's hard to perfect. So you're going to have some ice cold water, some flour that has been in the fridge, a 1/2 cup of margarine, a 1/2 cup of shortening, and they are both hard because they have been in the fridge but they're still soft enough for me to cut. Now the secret to creating a buttery flaky pie crust is to make sure that your butter is cold. You definitely don't want your butter to melt while you're still making your dough. Once it's in the oven, that's where all the melting can take place because then it will create these air pockets and that's where you get your flakiness from. Perfection. So in a bowl, you're going to add 2 to 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. Once you've done that, you're going to go ahead and add a 1/2 cup of butter and a 1/2 cup of shortening. Now, the butter I've used is margarine, and the reason why I've used margarine is because margarine has a rich, buttery flavor that is, dare I say, better than butter. And what's better than something that tastes better than butter? Exactly, nothing. Now at this point you can rub in the butter using your fingers, but for the sake of retaining the temperature of the butter, I would suggest using a pastry cutter. But because I don't have one of those, I'm going to be using 2 forks, and I will be back to you when this mixture looks like breadcrumbs. So now that your butter is all rubbed in, or in my case forked in, into your flour mixture, you can go ahead and add your ice cold water. Now, it is important that you use the least amount of water that is required for this recipe. You don't want to put in too much water because water speeds up the formation of gluten, and gluten kind of makes your dough tough, and that is definitely what we do not want. So you're going to add this water in at small increments, which just means a little bit at a time, just enough to give your dough the right consistency and just enough to make your dough come together. That's all you need. So at this point, your dough should be looking a little bit like this. Don't be scared. I know you're probably saying, girl, that dough looks a little dry, but no worries. The amount of butter that I have in this dough is keeping it moist. I don't want to handle the dough too much, so I'm just going to wrap this in some plastic wrap and put it in the fridge to chill for about 30 minutes because we want that butter to stay cold and temperate. So I took my dough out the freezer, I rolled it out, and I made this lattice. You can cut your lattice using a pizza cutter. So all that's left to do now is to put this pie in the oven and let the oven do the rest of the work. Just look at that pie bubble, and just like that, you've made yourself a buttery, flaky, perfect apple pie that I'm pretty sure would not last too long in your house because it didn't last a day in mine. Thank you guys for watching. I really do hope you enjoy this recipe as much as you will enjoy eating that lovely apple pie.